Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are doing well. It is a little bit later in the PM than I anticipated, but better late than never, I suppose. So I hope you guys are doing well. It is 3:20 about. So last time we did C++, we covered a little bit of inheritance. We didn't. I think that was part two last time. And the first time I was actually very frustrated with the way that the course had gone. But I've already done my bitching about that. So last time we talked about inheriting. What was it? It was base class access specifiers. Basically, talking about how if we go from if you inherit something as public, then all of the stuff is available. Or all public things will remain public, protected things remain protected, and private will remain private to whatever class it has been inherited from. Right. So, like, I think in the example we had, we used player, or no, it was person. We used person as our base class, and we had a private inherit. Or first, we had a public inheritance to player. So we were able to access the what was it? Let me look at these again. These member variables again. We were able to access the full name, and then in derived classes we could access age, but we weren't able to access the private class, the address, from anywhere except for except through the base through the class. And then when we did player, it was exactly the same because it inherited all of the same things, and then it had its own what was the member variable for player? I think it was just the game, but I want to say it was looks like it was career year start, and then the salary. Yeah, and then when we went to nurse, it inherited private, or inherited protected, so all of the stuff is protected to nurse, so we couldn't access the stuff on the outside, except for we had to go through getters, and then it had its own private thing with the certificate ID, and then we had the engineer who inherited as private, so we couldn't access anything from it without going through getters. I think the nurse, when we inherited it as protected, it was like we couldn't access the name and stuff on the outside, but we could access the other protected stuff. We had a whole, man, where was it? It was a whole thing. I want to say it was in the main one, wasn't it? We're looking at the. Did you get to virtual stuff? What do you mean by virtual stuff? I don't think so, because that is I think if I'm looking at this correctly, virtual functions is like polymorphism, and we're still doing inheritance. Yeah. So if we looked in our main thing, you will see today. Oh shit, will I? Closing in on inheritance. All right. Well, in that case, let's get this show on the road, shall we? I think I've done enough recapping of what I did last time, and I think I still have I think I still understand most of what's going on in that. So let's go over to. All right. So there's that, and then gotta change this one real quick. Though this is the old one. This is what we did not yesterday. Jesus, on Thursday. So odds are we'll have to change this one. So in the meanwhile, let's take a look at what's going on in here. We are at 24 hours, 7 minutes, and 42 seconds. In general, private inheritance is bad. Don't do it. Yeah, it seems very restrictive. If it seems like the kind of thing where you'd want to just like define well, have your private member variables if you need those, and then just inherit publicly as necessary. Oh shit. Ah, I need to add those to my I need to add those to this scene. Thank you, old man in tub. Appreciate the follow. I hope you enjoy your stay. All right, let's get this show on the road and let's see what Mr. Gakwaya has to say about closing in on private inheritance.
In this lecture, we're going to zoom in on private inheritance. And we're going to see that the class that does private inheritance is really selfish. Here is a simple structure we will be using in this lecture here. We will set up a person class which is
Useful
going to
graph?
act
I
as
don't
our base
recall.
class. We are going to inherit from this class privately and create an engineer class. And what this is going to do, it's going to take everything from the class person and make it private to the engineer class. So the M1 member variable, which was public in the base class, is going to be private to the engineer class. This is what we have here. The M2 member variable, which was protected, is going to become private in engineer. That's what we have here. And the M3 member variable, which was private to person class, is going to stay private to person in the eyes of engineer. This is the situation we
This
have
all makes
here.
sense, and
So the
this is
problem
all
is
the
going
same
to really
stuff we
show
talked
up
about
when
before.
somebody else tries to inherit from engineer. Because M1 and the M2 are now private to engineer, they will be inherited but still inaccessible to the civil engineer class here. M1 and M2 will be private to the engineer class, but M3 will be private to the base class, which is person. So
Yes.
hopefully you can see the message that if a member variable is private, it can't be inherited in any way. It doesn't matter which kind of inheritance you do. So starting from engineer, which has made M1 and M2 private to itself, it's no longer possible to forward these guys down in the inheritance hierarchy. Another way to look at this is to see that the engineer class is really selfish. It is saying, I am going to take everything I can get from my parent classes because I am inheriting privately, but nobody else will be able to take things from me because I'm going to make them private to myself.
All
So
right.
even if
This
civil
all makes
engineer is
this is
doing
all stuff we've
public
we've covered, I feel
inheritance,
like.
that's not going to give him any access to these member variables, which are now private to the engineer class. Hopefully you can really see this, and private inheritance is going to really constrain what you can forward down to other classes that are going to be inheriting from you.
I feel
This is
like
the
if you're
message I am
inheriting
trying to
something
convey
privately,
here. Okay, so here is the
I don't
same
know why you would
example
want
in
choose
code.
to
We
do
have
that
our person
over
class.
just
It's
like
going to have
having
our
private
member
member
variables.
variables that
We're
you
going to
don't want
have
changed
the
and
full
then
name, the age, and
inheriting
the
as
address. They
at
are
the very
going to
least
have public,
protected.
protected, and private access. We are going to
What's going
inherit
on?
from
We're doing
person and
inheritance
create
today,
our engineer class. We
and
are going to privately inherit from person, and this is
we're
going
like
to take
24 hours into
everything we
this
got from
31-hour
person
video.
and make it private to the engineer class. And one exception is going to be what was already private to the base class, which is our
You'll
person
rarely
class
see a
here.
protected and
This is
private
going to still
inheritance. I
stay
also do not
private
recommend it
to
because
the
it makes your
person
code base look
class,
even more convoluted.
regardless of
Do
what
you
kind
have a
of
mom or dad?
inheritance you
Yeah.
do from person.
Yeah, I've got both.
But any other thing,
That's
if we
kind of how
have
I
any member
exist.
variable which are public or protected, or even if we have some member functions which are public or protected, everything is going
Then
to
you'll
be
inherit
private
something? Huh.
to the engineer class because we have done private inheritance here. So if we inherit from engineer and do any kind of inheritance, we are going to do the most relaxed kind of inheritance, which is going to keep the kind of access we had in the base class, but this is not going to improve anything. Everything is going to stay private to the engineer class, and the civil engineer is really not going to have any access to any member variable or member function that is inherited from the engineer class. And we are going to see this in a minute when we hit Visual Studio Code. So again, if a class is doing private inheritance, it's really another way to say this class is selfish. It's going to take everything it can from the parent class, but it's not going to forward nothing to downstream
Why are you learning
inheriting
this? Because I'm
classes.
interested
And
in
this
it.
is the setup I really want you to understand here. And only do private inheritance when you want this kind of behavior.
And I need it to
Now that you
understand
know this, we're going to head
how to
over to
write my
Visual
own
Studio
code.
Code and play
Do
with
you
this a little
understand
more.
anything? I do.
Here we are in our
I mean,
work.
if we look back at this example, so here we've created a class called person. This is a forward declaration so that we can actually access it. So when we have our class that we call engineer, and then we do this, this is what we're going to use to inherit all of the properties of person. So anything that we had put in this class, you know, if we go and do like this real quick, anything that we put in that class. So in this case, let's look at the person class that we created. We have all of these different things. We have a friend function, which we haven't really used a whole lot, but here we have a constructor, a default constructor, and a destructor, and then these are getters so that we can get the values when when we can't access them elsewhere. So here we have a these are our member variables. One of them is public, one's private, one's protected. What is a class? A class is it's like a it's like an object that we've created that has certain properties to it that we've like done this way. Will you make Temple OS 2? No. I am not smart enough to make a whole operating system at this point. Unfortunately, Terry Davis his spirit will not guide me until I've at least understand basic basic coding like I'm doing trying to understand now. You need schizophrenia? I do. That would be a It'd be a terrible tragedy, but it would also probably help me understand this stuff better.
To Visual Studio Code and play with this a little more. Here we are in
All right.
our working folder. The current project is closing in on private inheritance. We're going to zoom in on this and really understand the effects of doing private inheritance. We're going to grab the code from the previous lecture and we're going to grab the engineer
Wow, that was a lot.
and
Well,
the person class. These are going to be our starting point here. Make sure you grab
see
the
classes walking
.vs
around.
Code folder
Maybe.
if you are using VS Code with this course. That's going to give you the basic settings we need to do our C++ program. I am going to copy these guys down.
I need to make sure I see which ones he's using. So we go to this. So we have this, the engineer CPP, engineer H, our main. We want our person, and we want our person header. We're going to copy all of these into another project. Alright, and then we can open this one like so. This 1 day long? Yeah, it is. It's 1 day and 7 hours. It's 31 hours long. It's a very, very long course. Though it's still faster than a college course. And it's about as useful. So after lots of thinking, I have finally discovered that the person who is to blame for all of my terrible decisions. Guys, you won't believe this. Is it you, Redbird? How much did it cost? It's free. This is literally on YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's free. You can just walk into college classes. Yeah, if you know where they are. But I've been to college classes and they basically it's like, "Oh, here's a little lecture and then here's like the material that you need to study." so so I'm just doing that portion without paying the fucking requisite $30,000 or whatever the stupid shit is.
And put these in our
I will
current
teach you. Sure
project.
you will.
And again, make sure you have the main CPP file, the person class, and the engineer class.
Yep,
And
we
these
got
are
all
going
of
to
our
be our
stuff.
starting point. So we're going to open this little guy in Visual Studio Code by dragging and dropping here. We're going to look at our
We can
main
get rid of
CPP
these
program.
two.
We are not going to include nurse because we don't have this
We
included
don't have
here.
player either.
And we can really take out everything we have in the main function. We're going to be adding our own thing here. We also don't need the player class here. We're just going to be using person and engineer.
All
Let's
right,
look
cool.
at the person class. It is going
Alt
to have
F4
the
is for
member
autofill.
variables
Yeah,
that
sure
we're
it
going
is,
to
man.
expect.
I've
We are
never
going
I've
to
never
have a
gotten someone with
public
that
member
one before.
variable, the full name, a
All right, let's see. We have
protected member variable mage and a private member variable maddress here. We are going to create an engineer class which is going to privately inherit from person. So it is going to make everything private to itself. The engineer class is going to have a person part in it, but the member variables we get from the person class are going to be stripped down to private access level, except for the member variables which are already private in the base class, and that happens to be the address. So it doesn't matter which kind of inheritance you do, the maddress member variable is going to still be not accessible to inheriting classes. This is going to still be private to the base class, which is the person class here. So
Did YouTube block my threatening messages again? Well, you didn't seem to say anything after you pointed out who made all your terrible decisions. Why would you want it to be private? That is a good question. I actually don't know. I don't have any examples on hand as to why you would want to inherit something privately. Certain variables that you might not want changed, like in your certain member variables, you probably don't want accessible to literally everything. But bro thinks no one heard that voice crack. I mean, I'm beyond caring about people hearing my voice crack. I've had so many goddamn hours on stream at this point.
the full name is going to be stripped down to private access level in engineer. The age is also going to be
I
stripped
followed up
down
by
to
saying that you should
private
prepare
access,
certain
and
things to
these are
do
going to
with
be
a
private
die.
now to the engineer class. And any class that tries to inherit from engineer is not going to have access to these guys. So if we do any kind of inheritance from engineer, we want to have access to full name, we want to
Shouldn't you
have
be
access to
concentrating on the
age,
video?
because these are
Eh,
going to be private to this
eh.
class here.
As
This
long as
is
I
the setup
understand
we
what's
want to
happening.
understand in this lecture. So what we're going to do, we're going to set up a new
Are you
class
streaming on
which is
YouTube or
going to
YouTube
inherit
or Kick?
from
I'm
our
on YouTube as
engineer
well.
class, and it is going to do public
YouTube and Twitch.
inheritance, and we're going to see how this works.
I'm not
We're
gonna
going to
lie, I
create
treat
a
Twitch like
civil
my redheaded
engineer class
stepchild.
which is going to inherit from engineer. So
Most of the time, I have a what's the channel? It's just Ragnarok. I don't know if I have it linked on my Twitch at all. But the fucking most of the time I treat Twitch like my redheaded stepchild. Also streaming on Exclusively Friends. Oh yeah. I stream on Lonely Man's. Let me see.
So let's do this. We're going to create a header file for our civil engineer class, and we're going to create a
Civil
CPP file.
engineered
We are going to head over in our header file and put in
and
the class. It's
civil
not going to be
engineer dot
anything
cpp.
sophisticated. We're just going to have in our include guard. We're going to create a
Alright, we have to get all this shit in here. So we get our if and def civil engineer h define civil engineer h, and then we have our include engineer.h. So we're creating a class called civil engineer inheriting publicly from engineer, which I'm pretty sure we're going to change that. So we do this. Creating a friend. I still don't really understand the friend thing. I kind of understand the explanation he gave, but I don't really understand how it all works because of this OStream shit. OStream. We have our const civil engineer address operand, and then we go here to public. So this is all gonna be public to civil engineer. So here we do civil engineer default constructor. Then we're gonna have our destructor for civil engineer. Though I'm not gonna lie, I don't think that it's necessary because we're not doing dynamic memory allocation, but oh well. Void build road. He's going to build roads. That is what he does because he is a civil engineer. Private. I don't know why I put J private, but it's just private. We do std string m specialty, and that is going to be its private variable, whatever his specialty is. I assume it's going to be roads, but we don't actually care what it is. I did not mean to do that. And then we do our end if. Civil. Get rid of this include guard. Engineer H. Can you make games? Why does the civil engineer build roads? I don't know. As far as making games, I'd like to, but as of right now, I can't. I do not have the requisite skills. Invalid friend declaration. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? To finish on the follow-up, I am blaming you for my terrible decisions, and therefore you should anticipate certain actions of a violent nature being made against your person. That sucks. I'm so confused about what you're saying. It's like hearing a sketch play Madden. I mean, I don't know shit about Madden, so like I don't know shit about like football in general, so like I imagine it's kind of the same. It's a lot easier if you've been here since the beginning and kind of know what's going on. Or if you like are like some of my other friends who already do this shit for a living. I'm curious what's wrong with this one. What a maddening conundrum. Shut up, Redbird. Function definition for civil engineer not found. Isn't it? Civil engineer. Public engineer. So here we have our stdio stream. Okay. Operator. And that should make this correct. For some reason I wrote operation, which is not correct. That's incorrect, actually. So we have this, our specialty. Alright, so we don't actually have our, if I'm not mistaken, we don't have our implementation yet. Laughed at that, but not the intricate inheritance joke. It's not very intricate if all you're talking about is inheriting something from your parents.
Civil engineer class, which is going to publicly inherit from engineer. But remember, everything was made private to the engineer class. So even if
we know
we're
everything
doing public
in here.
inheritance, the full name member variable is going to be private to engineer, the age is going to be private to engineer, and engineer won't have any access to these
implementation?
But before we really play with that, we're going to put in our implementation in the CPP file. So let's put in the code here. We're going to put in.
See, he just copy all this shit in. Include person. There we go. .h. Include engineer.h. Include civil engineer.h. And we're including IOStream. IOStream. Civil engineer. Civil. In the scope of. This is different from inheritance. So this is our scope operator. So anything that we do in there is, it turns out if I don't spell things correctly, I can't actually go to heaven. std ostream operator. Gotta make sure we don't make the same mistake as last time. Ostream. Are you gonna make thousands of lines of code? Probably eventually. I don't know if I'm actually not sure how much code I've written over the course of this class. Probably not that much. Oh, I just realized I'm a fucking moron. I have not been sharing what the fuck I've been doing. For some reason, I forgot to do that. All right, let's see. Const civil engineer operand. Let me do some bullshit. Because this shit needs to look correct. So we have our out. This I don't really know what the fuck out this thing is. I think what it's supposed to do is just print this line of text, but I don't know how to parse this because this is the one thing I don't. This is one of the things I don't like about the way this class has been done with this shit specifically, and that's because we don't. This OStream and this came kind of out of nowhere, and I don't really know how to read it, which is frustrating for what I think are obvious reasons. Because I understand the rest of it. We have that. This is just for reading's sake. Age. What is STD OStream? STD is short for standard. OStream is like output stream. It I haven't used it. I don't really understand how this part of code works because he hasn't explained it. And it's my friends have tried to explain it to me on a couple of occasions, and I don't know if I'm understanding it properly because I haven't had to actually use it. It's basically been, hey, copy this and try not to disappoint your parents while you do it. I guess I don't know. Contract count. I don't know if I need the commented outline. I'll probably add it eventually. Operand contract count. Specialty. Operand M specialty. And then we end with this. Yeah, I'll add this just in case it's actually important or gets uncommented later. If I'm not mistaken, this is the thing that we can't actually access because it's private or to the person class. The question is critical. What's the best way to defeat the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Oh god. Your friends should just gather around and point their fingers and laugh hysterically at you. They do. On a weekly basis. They come around and they just start pointing and laughing. Alright, so this, get full name. Inaccessible. Interesting that it says this is inaccessible. Well, I guess I'm not surprised, because if we look at our civil engineer, this stuff would have been inherited as private, right? Well, I would have inherited the person stuff as private. We're just going to have all these different things open. Alright. Look at all these. Wow. I can just control tab. So we have our main, we have our person, our engineer, our CPP. Civil engineer, civil engineer. Alright, so we're looking at civil engineer.cpp. Alright, so this is the contract count. It's still inaccessible, which I guess makes sense. Alright.
In the implementation, and we're going to have our constructor in place, but notice what happens on our output stream
So okay, so it does
operator.
happen to him as
The
well.
output stream
Are you going to
operator
code
is a
VR
friend
games?
of the
Not
civil
likely. It's
engineer
not a
class.
medium that I'm
So it shouldn't
particularly
have
interested
access to
in.
anything we have in our civil
It seems
engineer
difficult,
class.
and
But
it's
notice
not
what
something
is
that I actually
happening
play a
here.
lot
The
myself.
get full name method is not working because it
Yeah.
has been made private to the upstream class, which happens to be our engineer class, and we can't
Yeah.
really access them even if we know that they are really part of the interface of the person class. We have them as public members of the person class, but when the engineer class did private inheritance, it made everything that is not private to person private to itself. So these getters are going to be private to engineer. When the engineer does private inheritance, the member
Yeah.
variables,
So
which are
none of this
public
stuff is
and
actually
protected, all
accessible
these
for, or
things
not
are going to be
none
stripped
of these are
down to
accessible
private
to our
access
civil
level.
engineer.
So they are
We
going to
have to
be
go
private to
through
engineer, and any kind of
engineer at
inheritance you're
least,
going
I
to
think.
do is not going to
An
change
address we
that.
can't
They are going
get
to
to
be
anyways.
inherited as private to the engineer class. That's why we can't even call them from a function which is a friend of our civil engineer class.
Yeah. So if you look here, like this person class, right? We created this forever ago, but like we have these are our member variables. And so when because we have this one as public, this one is protected, and this one is private, normally we can access this one wherever, if we're doing for a person. This one we can access with anything that has inherited person. This one can't be accessed by anything except person. So when we then create our engineer class, which inherits privately all of these variables, uh, all of this stuff, when it comes to the engineer class, becomes private. So it's only accessible to itself. So even though civil engineer inherits publicly, all of these things, because they're private to engineer at this, or when they're private in engineer, civil engineer doesn't actually have the ability to access any of them. It needs we need to go through the person getters, if I'm not mistaken. How are you learning all that? C++ is so hard. Well, you see, we're 24 hours into this video. It's like 24 hours and 17 minutes. So I've been over the course of I've been doing like what, 2-3 hours a day for like a little bit less than that on average for like 4 weeks. So 5 weeks maybe. It might even be 6 now. Jeez, I can't keep track. Time flies by. Bob McCat. But it all makes sense once when you've done it from the beginning, I think. I can't even understand pointers. I I mean, pointers are one of the more complicated concepts, aren't they? I mean, they teach it pretty early in this one, but like learning classes and inheritance is fairly universal across languages, from what I understand. And I'm speaking as a total scrub. This is my first programming language, so I don't really know how I don't really know how class works in other languages like Python or anything like that. I just know how it is here. You just extend your finger and you point. It's not that hard. Shut up, Redbird. Oh, you just point. That's a pointer. Fucking asshole. Yeah, classes aren't everything. Okay. That's good. That makes me feel like I've learned something that I understand. All right, what is in here that it doesn't like? Player.h not found. Well, player.h isn't there anymore, so. And this one has, okay, yeah, the contract count. All these things are private. So even though we have this, it doesn't work. There's no pointers in Python because snakes don't have fingers. What? What do you mean? What do you mean? Snakes don't have fingers. They have a tail, though. They could point with that. All right, let's continue with this. What is the solution for getting rid of this? I feel like we probably just commented all out, right? Because we commented out the address because we couldn't access it. I feel like this stuff, if we can't access it, maybe we need to go uh, maybe we go through person or something to get them. I don't know.
And we know that if you mark something as a friend, it's really going to have access to anything you have including private members, but we can't call any of the members from the engineer class because everything is now private to the engineer class. This is what I want you to see. If you do private
You
inheritance,
don't
this is
point tail,
going
you
to really
score tail.
strip down anything from the upstream class and make that private to the class that is doing private inheritance. This is the message here. And again, if you go in any method of the civil engineer class and try to do any kind of access, for example, calling the get full name method is not going to bode well. We're going to see that this is inaccessible here. If we try to access m full name, for example, change this to be something else, let's say Daniel
It's still inaccessible.
Ray, this is not going to work. If you try to access mh and change it to 45, for example, this is not going to work. We already know that the address is private to person, so we shouldn't really try to access it because it is inaccessible regardless of any kind of inheritance you do. But the members that were public from person can't be accessed from any class that is inheriting from person, even if we know that these things are public or protected in the person class.
I mean, that makes that we know. I'm like trying to brainstorm a way to like get around it. I don't know if I'm thinking correctly. I was joking. I finished the C++ tutorial and I feel lost. I feel alone. I literally grew personal attachment to the tutorial. Oh no. To be honest, I've been kind of wondering how it's going to be for me when I finally fucking finish this. Because we've only, and I say only loosely here, we've only got like 7 hours left of this fucking thing. It's we're over the hump. We're over the 24-hour mark. We're like we've been on the downhill. So it's inheritance and polymorphism, I think, is all the only two major chapters. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go do the fucking Unity, not Unity. What was it? It was um Unreal tutorial that I was doing before. I was learning the same tutorial for like 5 weeks. That's kind of where I'm at too. I mean, when was my first one? I think it was literally. I think it was the 1st of August. So yeah, so we're looking at like this is week 6, I think. Things really open up once you have that introduction finished. Are you sure? Because then I have to start putting these skills to use, and if I put the skills to use, then like what if I do it wrong?
And this is really what I want you to see. If we try and build our program, we're going to get a bunch of compiler errors saying that we can't access these guys from our civil engineer class. We are going to use the GCC compiler here because
It's
it
going
is
to
our
tell us
favorite.
inaccessible in that
And we're going to
scope,
see our
right?
compiler errors here. Okay, so we're going to get a bunch of errors.
Private within this
Let's go up
context,
and
not
see
wrong
all
one.
of them.
Wrong
We're
error.
going to get an error saying that get full name is inaccessible within the context
Inaccessible within this
of the
context.
civil engineer header class at line 13. We are calling this method. That's not going to work. We have another error here.
What if I do it wrong? You're gonna do it wrong. No! I refuse! I don't want to be wrong!
From line 13 of the civil engineer header.
No.
Okay, it is really the same error.
I don't like making mistakes, but I have to accept that it's going to happen
other
eventually.
errors. We have m full name, which is not accessible. We have mh, which is not accessible. We can't really do these kinds of things from the civil engineer class because
boy, will you be surprised how bad most professional code is. Oh no.
Class that did private inheritance. So let's take these out and show you that even if we can't access these guys, they are still part of our civil engineer class, and we're going to use a debugger to do that. I am going to take out these things, or I can comment them out and say that.
All right, let's. If he's gonna comment them out, I wanna put them in just so that I can see them as well. Get full name. Full. I gotta do these correctly in the right order. Full name. There's the wrong thing. It's Daniel Gray. And then age equals, yeah, so that's 45. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be too surprised to hear that professional code is bad a lot of the times, because I mean, I've worked with many professionals who are, well, you're a professional because you get paid to do something, not because you're good at doing something. It's kind of the unfortunate reality of it.
They are going to give you compiler errors. I think this is going to be more descriptive. So let's say compiler error. And access to the edge is also going to give you a compiler error. And we're going to go down and show you that we're also going to have the same problem in our output stream operator.
Right.
So if you really want your output stream operator to work here, what you can do is put some public members in the engineer class and make it give you access to the members that were eclipsed to private access in this class here. For example, you can return the full name. You see that we can access that here. You can return the age, but you still don't have access to the m address member variable because this is private to the person class. But I really don't even want to do this because doing this kind of design is sign of bad design in the first place.
Yeah,
so if you
that's what it
need
seems
to
like to
do those
me.
kinds of getters and forward them down to inheriting classes, why not change the design in the first place and not do private inheritance here? For example, if you change this inheritance to protected or public, these members are going to be directly automatically forwarded down to any inheriting class. So just know that you can put in public getters that are going to give access to the full name and age, but you still won't be able to access the address member from the inheriting class because this is the design you achieve by marking something as private in the base class.
It almost seems
If
like
you
he's
want
warning
the
me
address
against
to be
using private
forwarded
inheritance.
down, you might change the access level we have here and maybe make it protected or public. So this is the ideas I really want you to grasp. I am going to comment out the offended code here because I want you to be able to build this program and see that even if we can't access this get full name and get address members from inheriting classes, they are still part of our interface. We just can't have access to them because of the choices we have made in upstream classes. So what I am going to do, I am going to go in my main CPP file and I am going to create an engineer object. I will also include civil engineer here. Let's do that. And I am going to create an engineer object and I am going to create a civil engineer object.
Oh god, I can't spell.
And
Civil engineer.h. Professional code is bad because they know that professionals won't debug it. JK, when you have, oh god, I can't imagine having to parse thousands of lines of professionally terrible code. When you have a code team, professional code is a good team. A good team, Jesus Christ, professional code is good. But if it's a big corporation where workers have like no stake, it's bad. Oh god, that sounds like it would be fucking awful. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna try to get a job at Google or something. Just like, hey, can I like debug some of your code? See, and then look at it and be like, wow, this is awful. I want to kill myself now. Civil engineer implies the existence of an impolite engineer. I refuse to acknowledge any of that. Engineer, Eng1, civil engineer, and he's calling it CE1.
And I am going to just say done here. And I am going to put a breakpoint on line 12. We are going to use a debugger to really see that engineer objects and civil engineer objects still have a person part of them. We just can't access the interface that was eclipsed by the engineer class. So we are going to hit the run tab here and we are going to start our debugging session by clicking on
Make a template class like this, template bool civil. Then you can have impolite engineers. Oh my god. Civil and impolite engineers. Jesus Christ. I don't wanna. That sounds. Oh God. Civility. Oh God, I gotta stretch my freaking back out. Ah, I gotta die. Oh. Yes, civility is a Boolean variable. You either are civil or you are not civil. You also need to make an ngFar. Oh my God. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Get out of my head. Get out of my head. We have our civil ngFar, our civil engineer, our impolite ngFar, and our impolite engineer. Is that how it's gonna be? We're gonna have our 4 engineering classes, and then one day the impolite ngFar is attacked. Is that how it is?
The green button here, we are going to build our program.
Oh, that's right. Let's run task real quick. We haven't run a task today. Uh-oh, what's this? Finished with errors. Is it this one? In function std ostream operator. Ostream const civil engineer. No return statement. Oh, did I? Oh, it's supposed to return out, isn't it? Turn out. I think it was. What's the return out, and then we have our deconstructor. So it's return out. Like this, and then we have our. Does person also look like this? It does. So we'll do civil engineer, civil deconstructor in the scope of deconstructor civil engineer. So we do engineer, deconstructor, civil engineer. I think it looks like this. Yeah, and then we need boop, like so. Invalid destructor declaration. Is it? Oh. May not be redeclared outside its class. Oh boy. Draw up the matrix of different engineer types. We're going to need to do some permutation mathematics. Oh no. It's when this tutorial ends, you should try and learn template metaprogramming. It's really funny. Oh god. It's basically a programming language that they accidentally found inside C++. What? Explain. I don't understand how that works. How do you find something inside of something that was invented? Oh god.
And if the build is good, we're going to plug.
His is good. Here, let's try this. I broke something. Is this just not supposed to be here? Is that actually just extraneous? Build finished with errors. Oh god. Undefined reference. Are you sure? Why was the temp late?
We are going to hit the run.
I need to go look at the.
Even if we can't access.
Okay. So return out, and then we have civil engineer. Civil engineer. Like this.
there are still part of the choices we have made.
I need him to
Name
scroll
and
down just a
age,
little bit.
but
All right. So that we definitely needed the thing that I thought we needed. Does the joke have no punchline? Is it a literal one-liner? It's a template for jokes. I'm gonna ban you, Redbird. I'm gonna fucking ban you. You know, it's funny. The last time I told a friend of mine that I would ban them from my chat, I think I tried to silence him for 2 seconds on Twitch, and he ended up like he said that he was unable to chat the entire rest of the time. He needed to fucking he thought I actually permabanned him, and he didn't realize he just needed to reload the page to be allowed to talk again. All right, does this work now? What have I done wrong? It finished successfully this time. I don't know what I did differently when I created it this time, but I guess I'll have to go back and look because I don't know. Ragnarok, you know what John Conway's Game of Life is? Just lost the game. Shut the fuck up, Redbird. I do not know what John Conway's Game of Life is. No. It sounds familiar. John Conway sounds familiar. Basically, the very few rules made for a Turing complete game. Oh man. Oh no. Wait. Game of is that the one? Hold on. I think is this the one where it was like supposedly it could go it sounds familiar. It was like something about squares and like fucking like filling them or some shit. The little squares. Yeah, I don't remember. Fucking Game of Life. Cellular Automata. John Conway's Game of Life. This thing. I don't remember how this works, but it's like I mean, this just crawls along the screen. But yeah, I vaguely remember I vaguely remember that it exists. What about it? I don't quite remember the rules. Well, there are very few rules in John Conway's Game of Life. Technically made a Turing complete system, which means it can do any calculation. I'm gonna replay your stream and look at all your search bar suggestions. Don't do that. How does that thing calculate anything? The same was found in C++ templates. What? They found a functional paradigm Turing complete system. That's insane. What the fuck? How does it... God, math is beautiful. You know const XPR? I do not know that one. Const XPR. Const XPR variables. I mean, I assume that's different from a const variable of some sort. Functions. I don't think I haven't heard the term const XPR before. I don't know what that means. If I'm familiar with the concept, I'm familiar with it by a different name. Variables that are basically constants that are compile time. Trying to think if I understand what that means. I don't think I do. Like, is it like one of those? Does it like vary between systems and languages or something? Const XPR, const eval functions are evaluated at compile time. Okay. So they're evaluated at compilation and not when they're run. Like the compiler will automatically evaluate 5 plus 5 as 10 at runtime. To save memory. Okay. So basically any number that isn't going to be fucked with or changed during runtime will just be evaluated to whatever value it's supposed to be during compilation so that you don't actually need it doesn't need to do the calculation again. Sorry, I can't watch streams these days. Hey, don't worry about it, my man. When you can, it's great. If you can't, then oh well. So runtime basically doesn't do calculations. It's against their religion. Well, in template metaprogramming, you can do anything during compile time instead of runtime. What the fuck? So you can have the whole thing, like, pre-calculated, essentially? I say pre-calculated, but it's like before runtime, I should say. By doing funny tricks. Wait, is this similar at all to, a friend of mine told me about I think it was, I don't know what it was. It was some programming language thing that he had to do where every line of code would execute simultaneously. Templates basically write code for you, and we can use that to make it write our entire program for us. We learned a little bit about templates. What was it? I think it was during Lambda functions. Yes, Lambda functions. Here we are. We did a little bit of templates. How do you make it write your whole code for you though? That sounds almost like it would take more work if more work to do. When you make a template function, you didn't make an actual function, you just told the compiler to write different variations of functions for you, right? You create a template for the compiler to fill in the blanks on, is kind of the way I understood it. Where it's like, okay, I have to do this thing, and then the compiler understands what my intent is, hopefully, and is able to write the code necessary. And it's all done at compile time. Right. That's not something that it has to keep doing every time it runs, right? So what if we take that to the extreme just for the lulz and do everything at runtime? What the fuck? But how would you do that? I mean, compile time. Well, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, but how would you even do that? It feels like hacking. And I say hacking not like the cybersecurity. I mean like it feels like a hack, like a shortcut somehow. But it also seems like the kind of thing where if you were to show me what that program looks like, it would look fucking arcane. Because if I remember Lambda functions at all, I remember they felt kind of arcane. It seemed a little bit strange the way that they looked to the human eye. The standard library uses template metaprogramming all the time. It's useful for library programmers, not real programmers. I assume when you say real programmers, you mean people creating applications. Things like, well, I mean, things like games or like your website widgets. Human NPCs are determined at compile time while I am runtime all the way. People consuming libraries. Yes. I mean, library, right? If I'm not mistaken. And I think that there's also like a math one and a few other ones that we just don't use a whole lot of, at least in this program. This stuff is interesting. Incorrect. I was evaluated at runtime. I am not evaluated at compile time, right? Right? Free will? Oh god, what is it? Laplace's demon or some shit? I want to say is like the concept Laplace's demon. I think that's the one. Yeah. The idea that everything is, if you know the position and velocity of um, every single atom, every single particle in the universe, you can predict the future or some shit. That would be like, that's an interesting. That's, I always think that's an interesting thought experiment. Is like, does that mean that we still have free will, or does it mean that everything is shaped by everybody and the stuff around them, and there's nothing that we can do because we are the way that we are, and we will always be the way that we will be, and our entire destiny has been predetermined. And laser rise and superpowers. Average template metaprogramming conversation. I don't know whether you're evaluated, but you are certainly being judged. Oh god. It's so it's uh it's all so complicated, making my brain bleed. Ugh. All right, let's continue with this a little bit.
You still want to be able to
Oh my god.
the address member from the inheritance
I'm actually going to
class,
go ahead
because
and
this is the design you achieved
do that.
by marking something as private in the base class. If you want the address to be forwarded down, you might change the access level we have here and maybe make it protected or public. So this is the ideas I really want you to grasp. I am going to comment out the offended code here because I want you to be able to build this program and see that even if we can't access this get full name and get address members from inheriting classes, they are still part of our interface. We just can't have access to them because of the choices
God has a
we
lot
have
of technical
made in
debt to pay
upstream
down,
classes.
120,000
So
years,
what
and we
I
still
am
have
going to do,
remains
I
of a
am going to
tail.
go in my main CPP file and I am going to create
What the
an
fuck?
engineer object. I will also include civil engineer here. Let's do that. And I am going to create an engineer object, and I am going to create a civil engineer object, and I am going to just say done here, and I am going to put a breakpoint on line 12. We are going to use a debugger to really see that engineer objects and civil engineer objects still have a person part of them. We just can't access the interface that was eclipsed by the engineer class. So we are going to hit the run tab here, and we are going to start our debugging session by clicking on the green button here. We are going to build our program, and if the build is good, we're going to plug the binary that was generated into our debugger, and we are going to hit our breakpoint in a minute.
All right,
Once we
breakpoint
hit
hit.
our breakpoint, we are going to look at
Whew.
the local variables we have in the main function. We're going to see them on the left here. If we expand, we're going to see that we have an engineer1 object and we have a civil engineer1 object. If we look at our engineer, we're going to see that we have a person part of this, which is our base
person
class.
is our base class.
And if we look at civil engineer, it's also going to have a base of engineer. So any civil engineer is also going to be an engineer, but the engineer part of civil engineer also has a person part of that. You should really see this information. And the main message I want to convey here is that all these objects have a person part of them, we just can't access that part in objects of our inheriting classes because of the design decisions we have made. Let's close this off now that you have seen this. And again, we are really working on this inheritance hierarchy. The base class is person, and it's going to have these member variables. But if we do private inheritance from the person class, anything that is not public is going to be eclipsed down to private level access. So
Yep.
any other class that is
Yep.
going to inherit from
All
our
this stuff we
engineer class
understand.
now
Good.
is not going to have direct access to these members because they are going to become private to this class here. And that's the experience we have if we try to use any of these methods and members we get from engineer. This is not going to work because they are now private to the engineer class. This is the message here. So the get full name, get age methods are not going to work if we try to use the contract count member, which comes from the engineer class. That's not also going to work. If we look in our header and try to use any of these members, we're going to get compiler errors because all these guys are now private to the engineer class. This is really all I wanted to share in this lecture. Let's head over to the CPP
That's
file.
the thing he's been hammering home this whole time.
Because I don't want to leave you with these compiler errors. I hope you found this lecture informative and fun. We are going to stop here in this one. In the next one, we're going to see that we can actually resurrect some members back in scope if they were eclipsed by the kind of inheritance we did from an upstream class. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.
Okay, so that's the thing that he's been trying to hammer home pretty much this entire thing so far, because I mean, inheritance is, from what I understand, inheritance is a pretty serious topic when it comes to what was it, the word, when it comes to any object-oriented language, because this is like one of the major things that like this and classes, from what I understand, are like the kind of like big deal. Like, you need to understand these things if you want to have any chance of understanding the code. You know, like, if you don't, even if you don't like understand the written syntax, you need to understand these things. Inheritance is a big thing. They filmed a whole show about it. Isn't there a movie, like a horror movie, or called Inheritance, or is it Heritage or some shit? Inheritance. Movie. Yeah, Inheritance. I think that's the one where the little girl loses her head getting hit by a fucking pole or some shit. But yeah. So this one fucking, for even if you can't like read the syntax, understanding the hows and the whys of inheritance and classes, and I assume polymorphism as well, but from what I understand, that's to a lesser degree, kind of. Even though this is like a good portion of the frickin' class. Looks like we have another 2 hours of this thing to go before we actually reach polymorphism. So we're dealing with. So the next thing is resurrecting members back in context. Okay, but yeah, understanding how inheritance works has been kind of the main point of this whole thing, right? So here we create an engineer and a civil engineer. You know, how goes it? It goes extremely well, Steve. I hope you're doing well yourself. What's that ASMR in my recommendations? Do I have ASMR in my recs? I mean, I got some Tara. There's a book club. I got Absurd. Ah, here it is. Yeah. This is her first attempt at doing some ASMR. But yeah. So this is kind of the big deal. Been outside laser engraving glass and leather. Nice. Nice. So, like, what we have here, right? We have our engineer class, which inherits stuff privately from person. So none of the stuff that's in engineer is actually accessible to civil engineer, which is, we talked about this a little bit. This is not something that I would do. It seems it's good for learning the hows and the whys, or it's good for learning how it works. It's not so good for explaining why you would choose to inherit something privately, because like most things, I'm sure there's a reason that it exists in the language, right? There's just I can't imagine it would be completely pointless and be included. You know, the stench of leather engraving is legendary. I believe it. From what I understand, leather does not does not have the greatest of smells. When or is it supposed to be like really good? Because like I don't know if like burning leather sounds like it smells very good. I don't think I've ever actually done it. I think stench implies that it's pretty negative to me, but I don't know if that's just a fucking me thing. But yeah, it's we I think we kind of understand how all this works. Legendary bad, yeah. It's just like uh. Do you have much experience with leather close to your face? Not really. I've sat in like leather car seats and shit before, but I've never like no. I have like fake leather couch, you know, the kind of stench that makes you feel like coughing up blood. Just like slow and like dying, like gross. I don't want to smell that. All right. Is there anything more with this? We have our O stream. I do kind of. This is the one thing. So we have this as well. This friend thing, which I think I I think he explained it. Basically, that this is supposed to be a friend. I don't understand what the friend is supposed to do though. I think what this is supposed to do is make it so that you can use OStream to access the different classes, but then because the other one is private, it doesn't work, whereas this one uh, is not. So it should still work. I don't really understand it. I don't think. Are you breathing in the chemicals? I still feel the pain in my lungs now. Jeez, that sounds like a bad time. Are you breathing in the chemicals? Are you waking up and feeling it in your bones, dude? Maybe I should listen to Radioactive again. People dog on Imagine Dragons for being like bad or whatever, but like I kind of feel like Imagine Dragons is just like Nickelback. I was like, it's not that bad. No, I feel like it's very overblown how much people seem to care about it. I was even outside doing it and being in open air. Nice. You probably don't want to do that in like an enclosed space. At least not without like a mask of some sort. All right. So I think the next section of this is resurrecting members back in context. We're a little bit less than halfway through. I think okay. So I'm gonna I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it here for the day. A little bit short, but I want to understand what the hell this thing is. What is this? Unused parameter operand. Yeah, I don't know what this is. I don't know why it's. I mean, it's not really an error because it still works, but it's. It feels like the kind of thing that's. I think this is one of our like not error, but like. It's not going to cause a compiler error. I don't think. Not wearing a GIMP mask. You don't want to wear a GIMP mask? All right, let me get my progress. All right. So here we're looking at chapter 18. And we're at 24, 26, 36. And the next section is called Resurrecting Members. There. Do like that. Close that. Yeah, I think I'll stick to messing around in Python. This looks insane. It's kind of funny. I feel weird being the one to say this, but like this isn't that bad. Like this is not. I mean, the most confusing part about this is this thing that he hasn't that I still don't think I understand. This friend and the O stream. I don't know how to parse O stream, but the the constructor and the deconstructor, the private member variables and stuff like that. All this stuff kind of makes sense to me. Maybe I should mess around in Python as well. All right, so we have all this stuff saved, but I'm not some kind of super villain with the IQ of 5,000. Neither am I. C++ is probably neat if you start with it without a frame of reference. Maybe should I be using what is it? Memory safe languages, I think is the term. I had a friend who mentioned that I should check out like Java or Python after I do C++, just so that I could see how different it is. But I don't know. This I mean, it's a little bit complicated with like the syntax and stuff, I think, but it's not like understanding the concepts of it doesn't seem too bad. C++ is cool, dude. It definitely looks cool. I think this is like this kind of reminds me of like oh god, you guys ever see this fucking website? It's so funny. Here, we do like this. And I'm just gonna no, you know what? I'm gonna stop fucking with it. Oh no, I fucked with it too much. There we go. That is literally all it is just you just mash the keyboard and it types a bunch of random shit that doesn't actually mean anything. At least not as far as I'm aware. This shit's funny. Alright, but we're good on this. Got our save. Close that. We have our data, or our current location saved on this one. So let's go over to here. Nice. You can type anything and make it look really intelligent. Yeah, it looks really smart, but if anyone can tell what it is because you're just fucking mashing the keyboard. I already have memory problems. I forget everything. I'm going to be 100% honest. Python indentations are more cursed. Are they? The indentations do bug the hell out of me. Oh no. Is this what people are using filming for TV? It might be. I wouldn't be surprised. And Python is so slow. Is it like slow to compile, or like programs that use it like just resource intensive or something? Python has to use C++ with it to be usable. I'm using Python on the RPI 2040 board. Though the Raspberry Pi. I have a couple friends who have messed with Raspberry Pi, and I don't do anything with coding. I didn't like go to college for programming or anything like that. Like like it seems like all of my friends did. Like let me see. I can count like 5 off the top of my head. Probably I have a couple more that have messed with it tangentially. And if I think a little bit harder, if I want to go with like friends of friends, I know so many people who do this shit for a living. Python is an interpreted language. It doesn't compile the same way other languages do. It's basically all done at the moment. Raspberry Pi 2040 is a tiny cheap chip you can code Python onto. I can power it with 3 volts. Wow. Wait, is stream ending? Yeah, I'm calling it. I think I'm gonna call it here for the day. I'm gonna try and we're gonna do this again tomorrow, most likely. That is the intent. I try to do it around the same times, the same days. Some days I've gone a lot longer, and other days I'm like this, where I'm kind of just wow. I once played a game that had the Easter egg of the lead dev ranting about the Python-based engine he was using. Oh no. Pygame? Excessive moan then? Oh no. Is Pygame bad? I've seen people talk about different game engines. When Unity did that shit where it like fucking like they changed some part of their licensing agreement or whatever the hell it was, and a bunch of people were like, "Oh, just switch to Godot instead. Use Unreal instead." I think Pygame came up in the not in like huge contention, but it was one of the things that people mentioned. I remember. There's a Raspberry Pi 2040 watt board with Wi-Fi support, if that interests. Maybe once I understand things a little bit better. Maybe I should do some Python stuff though. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see the differences, if nothing else. I'm curious. I don't know how. I don't know. All right. I think I'm gonna go ahead and hop off now, guys. I hope you guys have a good one with a good rest of your days. We'll be continuing to do this tomorrow. I'm also gonna be live later tonight with some gaming stuff. I think we're doing Tenchu tonight, so I hope that'll be that should also be fun. Yeah, it'll be different. It's a little bit a little bit more relaxed, I think. Doubt I'll be alive to see your stream later. You missed. Hey man, whenever you're able to drop by, it always makes me happy to see you around. Good luck, Miss Tron. Oh my god. All right, guys, have a good one. Later. Thanks for watching. Bye.